Hello, and welcome back to another edition of All or None According to Jack with your host, Jack Toledano. So, recently I took a trip to Florida, and instead of flying, which, all the trials and tribulations of flying in an airplane, everything that goes with it, I decided instead to put my car on what they call Amtrak's Auto Train and took the auto train from Virginia down to Lorton, Virginia, down to Sanford, Florida. And basically, I'm going to talk, and a lot of people asked me about that, asked me, how was it? What was it like? And, loading your car and doing yada, yada, yada. So I thought I'd put a short video together, and I'm going to call this video, wait for it, uh, share the screen. Planes, trains, and automobiles. So, of course, I couldn't do that without having showing a little Steve Martin and John Candy, two very funny guys, two wild and crazy guys. I digress. So, anyway, basically, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about the pros and cons of flying versus taking the train. So, uh, if you'll indulge me, let's go to the next slide. There's only two slides, by the way. There you go. And I'm not gonna do like I normally do with my ranking the albums, where I have all the all the different pros and cons appear. I just put it up all at once, and I'm going to talk about it. So, flying. So basically, what happened was when I was planning this trip, everybody, I told everybody initially, you know what, I'm just going to drive because I'm sick of flying. I've flown twice to Florida this year and once to Ireland. And, uh, I enjoyed the Ireland flight the most because I was with my family and we had some laughs. But again, there was still some, you know, negative side effects to deal with. So everybody's like, oh, why don't you just fly? I'm like, but I don't want to fly. I've flown so much, and I'm thinking of all these cons of flying. So let's talk about it. Pros. So if you're flying from New York to anywhere in Florida, it's basically it's under a 3 hour flight. So it's probably 2.5 2 hours and 5 minutes in the air from New York to Orlando, which is very close to Sanford, which is where we took the I took the auto train to. So there's no question about the speed. uh, Years ago, my family and I decided to go to Southern California and go to Disneyland, among other places. But we got on a plane. I think it was a 9 a.m. Was it a 9 a.m. flight or an 8 a.m. flight? Uh, yeah, so it was an 8 a.m. flight. Flew out to LA, and we were literally there. But so it was about a 5 hour flight, but we were literally there at about 10, 11 a.m. California time. So we still had the whole day. We rented our car, we got our hotel room, and we actually did our first day that same day at Disneyland. Of course, we were all, we we stayed in the park till 1 a.m. California time because in the summer they extend the hours to allow people longer time to be in the park, but we were exhausted. But so that's the one pro about flying. Cons, me, I'm a person that I don't like to be on other people's schedule. I like to be on my own schedule. So, water break. When you're in the airport, so you have to allow yourself time to go through security, and you have to get to the airport a good probably 3 hours before your flight time, because you got to go through security. You got to check your luggage if you're checking luggage. You then you go to your gate. You have to wait for your seat, for your section of your plane to be called for boarding. That takes time. So before you know it, so a 2.5 hour flight to Florida, you can add about another 3 hours. So that's 5.5 hours. So wait time, that's no good. Security sucks. Uh, this is the world we live in today after 9/11. But you know what? It's a royal pain in the ass. The worst part of it is standing on those long freaking lines. Uh, where did I go? We were online for easily 45 minutes to an hour. It might have even been for our Ireland flight. Uh, Also, my flight to Florida the second time in the Delta, no, in the JetBlue terminal, Terminal 5 at JFK. I was online for a good half an hour, 45 minutes. So that's a royal pain in the ass. And sometimes they could be a little invasive with their questioning and I never forget the time we went to the Bahamas for Christmas. On the way back, they pulled me out of line. They randomly selected me for a full search. So yeah, they were open your suitcase, do this, do that, take everything out of your pockets, take your shoes off. I'm like, do you want me to take my fucking pants down so you can see my schlong too? I was getting really pissed off. So I'm starting to throw stuff on the table, and the lady looks at the other security person. Oh, this guy's not being very cooperative. And I'm thinking to myself, I keep this up, I'm going to be thrown in a Bahamian prison, so I better just cooperate. So I bit my tongue, uh, finished the security detail, finally got on the goddamn plane. And let me tell you, I wrote JetBlue such a nasty, nasty, email after that. Pain in the ass. Delays. We all know about those. I remember we flew to Arizona. So on the way back, we had like a 1-2 hour delay because we had a red eye flight back from Phoenix. Let me tell you, Sue was not a happy camper. Having to wait a couple hours. Uh, so at least me, I went to the bar, I got a couple drinks, so I was relatively chill on that occasion. Then we get on the plane, 2 seats back, there was a crying toddler. And we looked at each other like, no, no. Yeah, delays are not fun. The worst delay I ever had was the blackout of 77. My mother, brother, and I were supposed to go to Italy, and our flight got delayed 6 hours. It took an Alitalia 747 back in the days when you can fly a 747. But yeah, 6 freaking hours. Then they boarded us. Then we taxied for a while. We literally did, I think the flight was originally scheduled for 6 p.m. Our wheels touched off the ground at like 1:45 a.m. Of course, we missed our connecting flight from Rome to Naples and had to take a bus. That wasn't fun either. Uh, Next, you got to rent a car. Uh, well, not always. Sue and I rented a car in Arizona. We did not rent when we went to Vegas because, they we had a monorail that we could take, and that really saved our bacon that week. What else? We had to rent in Ireland. I usually have to rent when I go to Florida. Um, Costs money. I mean, what are you going to do? It's easily $400 or $500 for the week. Depending upon what you rent. I usually go, mid-sized car, something that's comfortable. Connecting flights. So we know my parents live in Daytona Beach. when I I've tried to fly into Daytona Airport, which is literally 5 minutes from their house. Unfortunately, the only way right now to fly into Daytona, you have to take a connecting flight. You fly with Delta, you have to fly through Atlanta. If you fly with American, you have to fly through Charlotte. So connecting flights are a pain in the ass, especially going through Hartsfield Airport in Atlanta. You know, they may drop you at, they may, you may deplane at Gate D, and then you have to take the monorail train to go to freaking Gate A, which is what I had to do the last time I did that. And I'd say I got to my gate with about 20 minutes to spare, just enough time to buy a soda and maybe a snack. But there have been times where I missed my connecting flights in Atlanta because the airport is just so freaking big, and you know, our taxi took a little too long getting in, and you know, getting to the gate. So that was not fun. Actually, the last time I took American back from Daytona, and that was delayed, so I had to take a later flight, and basically instead of going back to JFK, I had to go to LaGuardia, which was not fun either. Cramped seats. So fortunately, I've lost some weight. I'm now under 200 pounds, but back in the day, I was heavier. It was not fun sitting in those goddamn seats. The worst flight we ever had was back in the early 90s. My wife and I and daughter, who was 2.5 at the time, we took a flight from JFK, New York, to Seattle, Washington. And they put us on this freaking narrow body, very similar to this plane here, a narrow body 757. I mean, talk about claustrophobia, talk about, basically being in solitary confinement. These seats, I mean, I can barely fit into the goddamn seats. My hips were a little wider. It's total BS for a 6-hour flight, no less. Worst flight I ever had. Fortunately, JetBlue has gotten a little better. Even Delta's gotten a little better with the more comfortable seats. I think using Airbuses these days they're a little wider fuselage. So I will say that our flight to Ireland, while I had a really good time flying over with my family, those seats were cramped. And that was a wide body. Very little food. So my wife and I, when we flew to New York to Phoenix that time, I swear to Christ, they gave us a package of cookies that looked about as big as this what do you call it? Sticky, the sticky pad. That's how big the package of cookies were. And I'm like, I gave the stewardess a sad look. She's like, I know. I mean, for a goddamn 5-hour flight, that's the best you can do. Unreal. Okay, so these are everything that was going through my head, that I didn't want to fly down to Florida a third time this year. Probably Sue and I are going to have to do that come January for my parents' anniversary. But I decided to maybe get creative. My first thought was maybe I drive. So New York to Daytona is about a 19.5-hour drive. So maybe I drive halfway, stay in a hotel, or stop in either, what the hell is it, Savannah, Georgia, like I once did, or in the future I might stop in Charleston, South Carolina, to spend the night there and rest and visit people and so on and so forth. But thinking to myself, how do I get down there quickly enough that because and I wanted to have my own car. I didn't want to rent, because the plan was I wasn't just going to go straight to my parents. A friend of mine good friend of mine offered me a ticket to go to see the Dolphins and the Giants down in Miami, my Hard Rock Stadium down in Miami Gardens. So I'm thinking, how do I get down? How do I get down to Miami Gardens? I don't want to fly and then rent a car and then bring the car to Daytona and drop the car off in Daytona, for a separate fee, for not returning the car at the same place that I rented it. So I'm thinking, what about the auto train? So I looked into that. And you want to know something? So the last time I flew to um, Florida, I flew to Orlando, rented a car, stayed for a week. The two flights, because I did two one ways. I did JetBlue going down, Delta going back. That and the rental cost me $1,000.50. $1,050. 1050. Taking the auto train cost me a little under $800. This basically for two coach seats, putting my car on the train, and yeah, round trip. So the pros. So it's a 16-hour train ride from, you leave at 5 o'clock essentially, from Lorton, Virginia. Takes you down to Sanford, Florida the next day. You get in at about 9 or 10 a.m. Going down, I actually slept for 7 hours on the train, which was good. This way, nobody had to worry about me. I was going to fall asleep at the wheel and drive off the road and kill myself, which sadly, I have seen people do that on 95. It's not a pretty sight. So, but I got to sleep on the train. Less limits for your luggage because you're putting your car on a train. You all your luggage can stay in the car. Of course, you cannot get to your luggage once you're on the train. So make sure you bring a backpack and whatever snacks you want to bring. Once you get to your destination, which for me was Sanford, Florida, you have your own car. You put a lot less miles on your car because I only drove from New York to Virginia, to the beginning of Virginia, Northern Virginia. The rest of the way, you're going directly to Florida near Orlando. So you're putting a lot less miles on your car. You can bring lots of food and beverages. So I brought dinner and snacks and beverages. I did treat myself to one beer on the train, but that was that. On the way back, I treated myself to a glass of wine. Good stuff. So a few cons for taking the auto train. Wait time. So the rule is, if you're taking that 5 o'clock train ride from Lorton, Virginia down to Sanford, Florida, you need to have that car in the loaded by 3 o'clock. Because what's going to happen then is they have to connect all the cars and blah, blah, blah. Wait time. They have you board at 3:30 for a 5 o'clock departure. Again, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of connecting of the cars and moving of the cars from one track to the other to get them all into one massive train that's going to go down to Florida. Of course, there's the longer travel time. There's 16 hours. So it's up to you. Do you want to deal with all these cons and get to Florida in 2.5 hours? Or do you want to have a bunch of pros and, enjoy, mingle with some of the passengers, bring your own food, watch a movie on your phone, listen to some music, sleep for 7, 8 hours? You could take the auto train, which, as it turned out, was cheaper by at least a good $250. So there you have it. Jack Toledano. The reason you're seeing the lake here is because that's where I'm going. I'm headed tomorrow evening for the weekend. Good old Lake Saucondoga, my second home. Haven't been there in a while, so time to go check on it. Um, Anybody want to get me anything for Christmas? Uh, get me some Italian cookies. I love them. Just kidding, y'all. Gotta have one. Mm, mm, delicioso. Yeah, you could take this on the train with you. Oh, look at me. As I got what the those little whatchamacallits. Damn, I can't think of it. Sprinkles. Sprinkles all over my mouth. Have a good night, all, and a pleasant tomorrow. Bye.